We are back with you with the CNC Auto Show. We mentioned a few things about diesels, and diesel engines are now estimated with 45 miles per
Miles per gallon.
miles per gallon on highway mileage. What type? I was going to ask what type mileage you normally get with yours.
Oh, around town, I'd say somewhere between 17 to 18.
Wow.
Pretty consistently. Now I don't travel a lot, obviously, but the highest I've ever got was 22.7. That was 20 gallons, and that was going. Well, that was actually with a four-wheeler in the back.
And mention
too,
what kind of truck
800
you have and what type engine.
Well, they call it LBZ, but it's a Duramax diesel 6.6.
Those are beautiful vehicles.
Yeah.
We have a fleet company that we work on a lot of their vehicles, and a lot of those are getting on up around 200,000 miles. They're still doing great.
Right. And no doubt, too, the tuning I have, that's specific for my vehicle, but you can actually get that same tuning with not necessarily a lot less power, but a little bit less power that actually increases the economy. So there are economy tunes out there,
So you're going after the power.
Right, yeah. Just kind of the happy middle.
Are we ready to go to the calls?
Yeah, let's go over to John.
Beautiful. Hello, John. Welcome to the CNC Auto Show.
Hello, how y'all doing?
Very nicely, and what can we help with?
I have a 1998 Chevrolet 2500 pickup. My gearbox and my power steering unit went out about the same time. Before they went out, I had a whining in it, and I replaced both of them, but I still got that whining sound. And when you cut it, make a right turn, it kind of stops for a while, and the same thing when you make a left, but then after a while it comes back.
So you just try and make right turns, more or less. John, that engine, I can picture it in my mind, that pump that's on there, did you do it yourself? Are you familiar with it?
Not really.
Okay.
Yes, but I did do it myself.
Okay. The reason I ask is, you remember where the pressure line screws into the back of the pump? That's the one with the actual nut on it that you have to use a wrench.
Yeah.
You remember the other line that had what they call the return line? It just has a hose clamp on it. Where the return line goes back to the gearbox, it's very, very, very common that the return line actually leaks there, and you'll never see fluid, you'll never see anything like that because it's on the return side. It's not under the same amount of pressure the other line's under. What happens is, and you can check this, crank the vehicle up, make sure all your limbs are out of the belt area, including your tie, and crank the vehicle up, take the power steering cap on there, and if that line is leaking, it actually pulls air into the system. And when you have that cap up, you'll see the fluid. It'll have really just bubbles in it. Aerated fluid. And the reason it whines is because, of course, there's little air pockets in there and the system's not 100% lubricated. That's the most common thing. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you when you replace that, nobody probably mentioned to you about bleeding that system out, did they?
No,
One very, very good thing to do, and sometimes it's in the instructions, and of course, just like a normal human, I would throw them away too. But there's a process. Yeah, it's a man thing. There's a process that actually is, done so that air gets out of that vehicle's power steering system. And what you would do is, of course, if you had a lift rack, you'd put it up on the lift. If you had a floor jack, jack both wheels up so that there's no weight, no suspension weight, no body weight on the tires. Take the cap off and cycle that wheel at least 10 times to the right, all the way to the right, all the way to the left, 10 times. Let it sit there and let the fluid settle. And what that does is it allows the fluid to go through that system not under pressure, and a lot of times it'll actually bleed those air bubbles out. And that very well could fix the problem also. But those lines leak and they pull air in. They never really leak out just because of the way it's designed. So I would look extra close at the return line and then try bleeding that system out.
Okay, I'll try that. Appreciate it much.
All right, if that don't work, try Aaron's answer.
Now, what is my answer?
I don't know. That's your answer.
I would do that one. Thank you.
All right.
All right, bye-bye. The number to call, 706-863-5800. John Ryan, who are we talking to?
We got a few minutes left before a break. Let's go over to Chris.
Hey, Chris, what can we help with today?
Good morning. I've got a 2009 Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Mm-hmm.
The air conditioning started having some problems, just not blowing cold. But what had me concerned about it is it blows fairly cold on the vents on either side of the driver's side and then blows warm air out of the rest of the vehicle.
Gotcha. Yeah, Chris, have you ever had any AC work done to that vehicle, any maintenance or any work at all? Okay. And how many miles are on it? roughly. It's
120,000.
The reason I ask is those Jeeps, I'm not going to say they have this problem, but what you're describing is kind of a problem that goes across the board for all vehicles. When the driver's side is different temperature than the passenger side, you would still say that the either of the two are still relatively cool, right? It's not like one's full-blown hot.
No, the driver's side is blowing relatively cool, and the rest of the vehicle's blowing pretty warm.
Okay, gotcha. What can happen a lot of the times is that evaporator, of course, is square in shape and the blower motor blows across it. When that system is low on refrigerant, it's only cooling, say, 30%, maybe 40% of the evaporator. And the duct design, of course, if you imagine, just picture in your head a square, the bottom half of it being cooled, the top half being hot. Say the top half goes to the passenger side and the bottom half goes to the driver's side. That's the reason you're getting cool air on one side. Now, there are a lot of different issues, like, for instance, if it has dual climate control, there could be an actuator problem, but normally it's like full hot on one side and very cold on the other. You don't have that instance. You just have a difference in
I had that same question not long ago, and a person, they had already did all kind of things under their dash trying to find out why it was cold on one side and not cold on the other.
Right.
And I told them the same thing, and what it amounts to is they did a service on the AC and it solved their whole problem.
Right. So that would be the first thing. A technician would hook a set of gauges or an AC machine up to it, see what the pressures are. More than likely, yours are probably showing a little bit lower, which, again, if you've never had it serviced, you got 100,000 miles, that may not be, depending on what they pull out and what it requires, that may not be anything a technician necessarily needs to address as far as a major leak. So most likely recharge the system, pull a good vacuum, put some oil in it, and that should take care of the issue.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds great. Thank you.
Great question, Chris. Thank you very much. Okay, the number to call is 706-863-5800. We'll have a break coming up very shortly, so instead of going to the next call, we're going to ask Ken and Darren to hold on, but we will squeeze this one in. This is this one is a little bit cheesy.
Okay.
In Wisconsin this week, when a big rig hauling 20,000 pounds of cheese, it burned to the ground. It was near Milwaukee. According to WTMJ, a semi-truck hauling thousands of bags of shredded cheese was cruising along when the vehicle's brakes burst into flames. Thinking fast, the driver pulled off the highway and into an Office Max parking lot where he tried to put the fire out himself. Can you picture this now?
Sounds like a grilled cheese.
Now, the fire quickly engulfed the trailer, and it seems that cheese is highly flammable, as it turns out. I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
And there was no word on if the cheese was edible after the big fire. Time for a break. We'll be right back after this.